most of my time viewing what I want from the outside. I comb it over like it's the scene of a crime.
All right. I hope you're all doing well out there. I know that clock said it had another 6 minutes to go, but I like starting on time, and we're at the top of the hour, and everything. This is one of my first lives that I'm doing this way, and if you are in the house on any of the platforms, do me a favor, make sure to let us know, drop a comment in, give me a thumbs up and all that stuff. This is going to be different because this is going to be one of the first interviews I'm doing again, and I'm going to start to bring interviews back to my channel and everything. And this one, I get the blessing and the gift to introduce you to a dear friend of mine, Brandon Lucero. Brandon has been instrumental, not just for me, but for a lot of people in getting our message dialed in. And too often what happens is that, and I talk about money, but you sit back and go, what does messaging have to do with money? Everything. I mean, the fact of the matter is that if I can't get someone to listen to my message, then there is no monetization of anything. And when we talk about the affluence blueprint or the money machine blueprint, you know, the first pillar is earn. And how do we earn? We scale income. We make money from what we know. We put things out there, and messaging is a huge part. And I thought it would be cool to have Brandon on. I'm going to bring Brandon Lucero up on the screen right now and everything. So good to have you here, my friend.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I appreciate you having me on, and excited to talk about how to make money using your words. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's been so for a number of years now, just something that you have done. But the thing is that often we don't think about how just a change in a couple of words in a sentence can be the difference between someone buying your whether you're trying to sell a product or you're trying to sell a service, or whether you're in a negotiation. It's just it can be the difference between whether you get the sale or not.
Yeah, it is. I mean, one word, a couple different words, the way you communicate it, really the way I like to explain it is the way you communicate affects the entire relationship that you have. And that's like personal relationships, business relationships, the relationships you have with your customers or potential customers. And they need to be able to understand right off the bat that, you know, you can help them, that this is going to be something they can trust, all of that. And the words that you use is literally the only thing that they have in order to make that decision, especially if you're selling online. If you're selling online, that's literally the only thing you have. You have your titles, you have your copy, you have the way you communicate in the content, and the way you communicate changes all of the results. Like just one shift in a headline, one shift in the way you teach, one shift in a topic can be all the difference between you and a really good launch, more sales, higher conversion rates, all that stuff, overcoming objections, all of it.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'd love to kind of chat, because when we talk about building income, when we talk about, here's the thing, I want people, the whole purpose of the whole money machine is to get your money to work harder for you than you did for it. But first we have to have money. And that comes from getting paid our worth. And the challenge is that I think a lot of people, they don't get paid their worth, one, because they don't ask for it. But two, they don't ask for it the right way. They don't put it out there in the right way. And I think that you have a unique way of looking at how do you do that and put yourself and position yourself in a way that the audience, the market, sees you as valuable, sees you as necessary, and sees them as them getting into, needing to get into this game. And so I'd love to get kind of your thoughts along those lines about those kinds of concepts. What are we missing? What are we missing when we're getting those, not getting those sales or not getting those closings?
I think a lot of times, I mean, there's multiple factors, right? There's like going to be the objection side, but also before we can even get to an objection, we need to be able to bring people in. And I think a lot of people, especially in the expert space, were like, I want to teach, I want to give out this content. We focus more on solutions than we do problems. And it's going to be this. I mean, it's the same thing with everything. Like every business, almost every business is here to solve someone's problem. And so they need to know that we can solve the problem, and they need to be able to trust us. The problem is when we focus too much on features, we focus too much on benefits, we focus too much on solution, we don't really get our audience or potential customer to the point where they know we can solve their problem. So for us, and I'm just going to use an analogy real quick, because I think this will bring it full circle. So like, let's pretend you're sick, right? Like you get sick and it's this weird thing. It's you get stomach pain and it's from 7:30 at night to 8:30 at night. It's been going on for 2 weeks. You go to 9 doctors and 9 doctors like, I don't know what's wrong with me or with you. I have no idea what's wrong with you. You're probably going to feel sad, depressed, like there's no end in sight. And that's where a lot of your customers are at now, because no one's been able to solve the problem, because that's why they still have it. But if you go to the 10th doctor and the 10th doctor takes one look at you, you don't even say anything, but the 10th doctor takes one look at you and says, let me guess, stomach pain started about 2 weeks ago, lasts from 7:30 at night to 8:30 at night. You're gonna be like, oh my God, yes, like finally someone that can help me, someone that understands what I'm going through.
Yeah.
And then if that doctor said, oh, you have, I don't know, stomach loop or whatever, and they walk away, they say, good luck with that, and walk away, what are you gonna do? You're gonna chase that doctor down and be like, doctor, what's the treatment? What's the solution? Take my money, heal me, right? You're gonna chase them down, begging them to work with you, begging them to take you on as a client. But that doctor never said they had a solution. They never showed you their case studies, their testimonials, their degrees. Yet there you are chasing them down, begging them to work with you. Why? Because they accurately and specifically described the problems. Or the symptoms that you're having. So when you can start your communication from a very accurate and specific symptom or problem, what it does is it makes the audience feel heard, validated, understood. But more importantly, what it feels like is that they can trust you. And there's 3 levels of trust that you have to build. And the words that you use can 100% dictate whether or not you get those levels of trust. And that level of trust was they trusted the doctor or the business owner. They trusted that person's ability to solve the problem. And that person didn't even have to talk about it. That person didn't even have to talk or say they had a solution, but because they so accurately and specifically described what you were going through. And again, you can do this a lot of different ways. Accurately and specifically describe someone's emotions, the mistakes they're making that cause the problem, mistakes they're making that they're trying to do to fix a problem that don't work, what the actual problem is. Like there's so many different ways in which you can do that. But when you can start your content, your communication, your sales pitches from that way, you get a level of subconscious rapport with the audience that brings them automatically. You start off the conversation at a high level of trust. And you need that level of trust in order to buy. And there's 2 other levels of trust, but right off the bat, you can get that first one.
So, and look, this is firsthand experience, and it was with a doctor, because literally so the audience may not know all the story, but on a Thursday, I saw the first doctor for my bladder cancer on a Thursday. Yeah. And literally I walk into his office. Now he had already sent me in for a CT scan 12 days earlier. And we walk into his office 12 days later, and he says the CT scan showed a 5-centimeter tumor. So I want to go in with a scope and check it out and see. Now that's on a Thursday. So he goes in with a scope. Now Friday we're supposed to leave to London. And the fact of the matter is that he says, oh, it's in there. We need to get you in on Monday, and we got to get this thing out. Now I'm subconsciously, I'm sitting back and consciously going, dude, you sat on a CT scan for 12 days and now it's an emergency.
Right.
You know? And so it's the opposite of what you were saying. But then what happened was my wife and I walked out, and I said, he's not touching me. There's something that isn't there, that trust. And she called a lot of her colleagues, said, who's the best urologist? And this doctor's name came up 3 times. We called his office, sitting in the parking lot of this other doctor's offices, and they said, we happen to have an opening tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. We walk in 9 a.m., and he thought I was there for a second opinion, which I was, but the way he spoke about it I looked at him, I said, it's not a second opinion. You're my doctor. And that
Mm,
was it. And he's been my surgeon since 2019 to carry me through this whole journey. But
yeah.
it was his demeanor, it was his words, it was his nature, it was everything. And on the other side of it, the other doctor, it was his words, it was his demeanor, it was his nature that repelled me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's how you can pull people in. That's how you can build the trust. It's all of those things. And so there's like certain words and areas that we can focus on. But like we mentioned, the problems and the symptoms are the very first one. And I'm assuming that doctor probably went through, described how you were feeling accurately and specifically before you even said it to him. Like those sort of things is what builds that subconscious rapport. When it comes to selling, we can obviously we want and need to use that to our advantage. So coming up with content topics and ideas that are along those lines. But also there's these things called relevancy triggers that we need to use. And relevancy triggers are like specific word categories or language categories that you can start using all over the place. So another one's going to be identity, right? So like, let's just pretend for a second that doctor, like it's no secret you're a millionaire, right? So I'm gonna throw that in there, okay? And it's no secret you're maybe it is a secret, you're over the age of 40, and
By a day or two.
right. And so let's just say, for example, he walks in and says, this is very weird, but I'm willing to bet you're a millionaire and you're over the age of 40 because this type of tumor is more common in people with like, and obviously this makes no sense, right? That's not a correlation, but let's just say, for example, what you're going to feel like is this guy understands me. He understands my specific situation. He gets like who I am. Like when you can accurately and specifically describe someone before they even say the words, it's game over on the subconscious rapport. And then if you start to when you move into like teaching them and helping them, you move into like describing the way you're going to treat them or the way you're going to help them in a way that's very easy for them to understand. You gain the second level of trust, which is they trust their own ability to do it. So if you had walked into that doctor and you felt like he understood you, but then he was like, yeah, Mel, you're going to have to do this like 9 hours a day, every minute you're going to have to monitor this and blah, 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 blah. You're going to be like, I can't do that. So you lose trust in your ability to solve the problem. Yeah. So the way you teach or the way you even communicate how you're going to help or what the solution is also has a big factor in it. So if we start to combine things like relevancy triggers, like the identity, like, you're a stay-at-home mom or you're a vice president of a corporation or you're whatever, or you're a dad, or start to use people's identity combined with the problem. And then you combine that with teachings that actually are very easy to understand and comprehend. You start to gain the trust you start to gain their trust in your ability to solve the problem, but you also gain their own trust and their own ability to follow your process. And those are the two types of trust you need. And then the third one is like that human to human trust, the know, like, and trust, right? So if you start to talk about who you are, you tell your stories, like what you just did, the story you just told right now, beautiful. It's a connection point. It's something the audience gets to know you on a personal level. They build a little bit more rapport. And when we can combine these three things together in content, ads, marketing, emails, sales start going through the roof. And so again, it all happens to come through language, messaging, communication, but there is a process to be able to put all of this stuff together. So you're getting more engagement, more sales, and then overcoming objections at the same time.
So cool. Now let's back up for a moment because we're not born speaking this way. We're not born. No. And so you given a little bit of your backgrounds, just so we give context to some people that don't know you, as we start to go deeper into some of this, is that how did you come upon this? Where were the things that got you to this point? Because there are so many people that will look to you and say, even if it's, hey, I'm having successful launches, I'm creating, I'm generating good income, but I know that there's more. And you become that secret sauce that either gets them from zero to prizes and doing well, or that one that gets them from a high threshold that others would say is successful to uber successful.
Yeah. So My journey started like 11 years ago. I was broke. I moved in with my in-laws. I just got married at the time and wanted to start a business because I dropped out of college and didn't know what else to do. And so I was a door-to-door salesman for a little bit, and that was terrible. I hated that. You know those jobs that you have when you're just like the pit of your stomach, you can just feel like, this is not me. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Like that was that. So long story short, I basically just started to look up like how to make money online. I started a real estate business, like doing real estate videos for agents and stuff like that, then SEOing those videos. But then I met a mutual friend of ours, James Wedmore, because we were both teaching YouTube SEO. Him and I partnered on a program that was really successful. And I had like a service and a program at the same time. And then ever since then, I just started creating more programs on things that I was teaching. So I started teaching video SEO, Facebook ads, marketing, like things like that. And then one day James came up to me and he's like, you're really successful with all these programs you do, but he's like, I don't know if you know this, but I think one of the reasons why you're really successful at this is because you know how to communicate. You're just naturally doing it. And I didn't realize I was doing that. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, this line here and this over here and this over here, that's very persuasive. It like shifts a belief or it does these things. He's like, can I hire you to write my video series? And I was like, okay, sure. So we spent 2 days writing his video series, and he was doing $800,000 launches at the time. His very next launch, I believe, did like $3 million. Same video series. The only difference was the video series, the scripting, how we taught, how we communicated. And ever since that moment, I was like, maybe I am really good at this. And so what I had to start doing was recognizing what were my language patterns. What was I doing? Because I was doing all this just naturally writing it. And then I had to put it into processes, into frameworks, into like a methodology. And then what I started to do is this is where things really took off, is I started to watch other people's videos and things I was clicking on and things I was registering for and asking myself, why did I started to realize I was automatically doing it. Like an ad would come up, I'd read it, and I would just automatically register without even thinking about it. Yeah. I was like, oh man, we're making these automatic decisions. What did this person do to get me to automatically want to click? It was an internal feeling of just click, buy, register, show up. And then I started to look at what other people were doing, and I just built out an entire methodology and process around this. And then that's just what we teach. So it's just, I guess, a natural talent I didn't recognize I had, and then building something to replicate what I was doing. And that's how we ended up here.
Wow. And I'm kind of proof of it too, but I mean, it's a learnable skill. I'm nowhere close to it like you. I mean, it's weird because I do a lot of negotiating and mediating, which has language patterns and things in there and strategies in there. But this is even a level above that, and I think that there's a power in that.
Yeah. And honestly, like what it comes down to, even in negotiations, is like understanding where the other person's at, like understanding where they're at in their thinking, understanding where they're at in their beliefs, understanding where they're like, again, thinking, emotions, perspective, and beliefs. Like those are three major things. And I think that's one of the things that people don't really understand, is like the way they communicate with their customer. One customer is the same way they communicate with the other customer. And especially if you're working one-on-one, like a car salesman or something like that, you can't do that because it's totally different situations and scenarios. It becomes a lot harder when you're going online, doing a live stream like this, trying to talk to many, or a piece of content that's being seen by millions. It's different. But it's not, though, because it's the same patterns. Every human is wired the same way. We all process information the same way. We all generally talk the same way. Most people talk in generalizations. Most people talk from their perspective. Here's the way I see it. Here's how I see the world. They communicate that way. And then it doesn't land with other people. But when we can start to ask, where is my audience at? Where are my customers at? What are their thoughts? What are their feelings? What are their emotions? What is their experience that I can tap into? Like the doctor that you saw. He's worked with so many people. He probably knew right off the bat what you were thinking, what you were feeling, what you were going, because there's going to be trigger points that every single one of his patients have, and he knows that, and so he can use it in his communication, and that's what makes people feel safe, heard, and builds that trust. And so that's as like you said, as business owners, this is a skill that needs to be mastered and learned. But once learned, this will be a skill that you have for the rest of your life. Yeah. And it will help you no matter what business you go into. So that's what I tell people is like, you're not just learning it for whatever you're selling it now. You're learning it for a life. You're learning it so that no matter what business you go into, you will be successful. You'll generate sales and you won't have to wonder why people aren't buying anymore. And that's what we teach.
It's so cool because I know coming up in school, I got my degree in accounting and all that stuff. I literally thought it's all columns and rows and math and don't worry about it. You know, like I took my business communications class, but didn't take it seriously and everything. And even when I started to really lean in and teach the financial concepts and everything, I thought I was going to teach people the math behind wealth. Okay. But I realized really quickly that until I understood how to communicate around the math, they would never receive it. They would. It wasn't going to take hold because I was not going to get through the barriers necessary to allow them to elevate themselves to a place where they desire and deserve to be.
Yeah. Yeah. All of that stuff. And then you also have to like overcome their objections. You have to overcome their doubts too, because it could be one of those things where it's like, I don't know if I could do this, or I don't know if I need this, or it could be something like, I can pay someone to do this, right? Yeah. So there's going to be all these other thoughts and objections that you have to come up with that you're going to have to battle and fight and all of that stuff too. And we could talk about objections all day long, but one of the things that I like doing, one of the ways in which I like to stop objections from ever really coming up in the first place is, number one, you obviously have to be aware of what those are going to be, right? And then what we do is I look at, like, I'm teaching this thing and I need them to understand that this is the best solution because I know it is the best solution. So I look at, like, well, what are the other objections? There could be time or the other options, right? They could do this option, this option, this option, and this option. So what I like to do, like before I teach on a webinar or something, is I will sometimes even go through all the options, which might sound counterintuitive. Like, why would you talk about all the other options that they could go with? So I say, like, look, guys, in order to get this result, for you to be like, in order to like make more money, master your money, or like understand the numbers of your business, whatever it is, you have this option. You could hire someone, which is one of their objections, right? You could do this, you could do that. And then what I do is I say, but here's the thing. And I go through each one and I show all the flaws and all the other options. So I'm like, but if you hire someone because you're smart about money, right? And you put them in a little bit of a bind, which is like smart about money, which means you're not going to go this way. So if you're smart about money, then you know spending money on this when you don't have to is going to cost you millions in the long run, blah, 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 right? And then you have to deal with someone. You're always on their timeline. And I just go through all the different options. And then what I just did is I took care of all the objections, all the options, and showed all the flaws. And I said, so that's why I need to show you guys this. That's why I need to show you this solution. So before I even teach the solution, I already get them sold on the solution. And then they, you know, in a webinar or something like that, or a sales presentation, before you get to the pitch, they're already sold on it. And so when we understand where our audience is at, what their thoughts are going to be, what their objections are, we can actually start to handle that before we even pitch. And so now we can move into the actual pitch in a place where the audience is already like, just shut up and take my money. And that's the secret. The secret is knowing where they're at. And I think that's very hard because that's not humans' natural way of communicating. We always communicate from our perspective. But if we can switch it around, the relationships you will build with people is endless. It's deep.
I remember having a conversation with an attorney. I was assisting him with the negotiation of a buyout between him and a partner. And he gave me a list of questions that he wanted to ask, and they were all why questions. And I said, the question of why, watch what happens when I ask you why. I'm begging for you to defend your position. And that puts you on the other side of the table from me.
Yeah.
I said, but when I ask a question from a how position, how can we do this? It brings you side by side staring at a problem saying, how do we both solve this, co-create a solution? And it presumes the solution is there. And we went into this negotiation and he came out of it, he goes, that was the easiest negotiation I've ever done. And I think that just the shift of that becomes important. Now, I got more for you, but I want to just let people know, because it's starting next week. You're doing a 3-part free training on this to help people get this together. Talk about it. And while you're talking about it, I'm going to put a QR code and a link on the screen for those that want to get access to it. Just go to melabraham.com/messaging. It's totally free. And it's 3 days with you.
It's 3 days. We'll be there for about an hour or two. Like the teachings will be about an hour, maybe hour and a half. And we're going to go through a process that I call conversion messaging. And it's basically how to take whatever it is you're selling. So if you have a course, a program, coaching, consulting, a service, whatever, and you're using online marketing and content to sell it, then this is the event you need to be at, because we're going to talk about conversion messaging, which is going to walk you through the entire process of how to take it, whatever it is you sell, but how to communicate it in the form of content, ads, emails, sales presentations, all of that stuff, how to communicate it effectively so you're attracting the right people, but get them to come to their own conclusions that, number one, they have the problem that you solve and that they need to work with you. So we just sort of scratched the surface here today, but we're going to go through different frameworks, like ways to title your content to come up with, how to overcome objections. Like we're going to go through the entire way to show you how to communicate so that you're actually driving conversions. And by the way, conversions don't mean just sales. So every time you send an email out to your list, there's a conversion that needs to happen. They need to open and click. Every time you run an ad, they need to click and opt in or buy or whatever it is, right? Every time you put out a piece of content, there's a conversion. You need them to watch. That's a conversion. You need them to click, comment, share, follow your call to action. Those are all conversions. The way you talk will literally determine whether or not you get conversions. And over the 3 days, we're going to show you the entire process of how to take everything that you do, communicate in a way that drives conversions. That's the goal.
Awesome. So for those of you that are watching, you can click the QR code or go to melabraham.com/messaging. I'll make sure that we put it in the description and in the notes for you to make that happen. It's totally free. I'll be there 3 days because I learned, it's just like, if I just learn one thing, two things to take away, it can be a game changer and everything. And it's not, and this is kind of where my next question was going. It's not to manipulate. It's not to try and convince or coerce someone to make a decision they wouldn't otherwise make. It's actually coming from a very caring place of service. I know for me, I'm in this season of service, and the more I can get the message in people's hands, the more I can get the method in people's hands, the more I can get the technology in people's hands for them to master their money, the more that I know that I've done what I was here to do at a level that transcends generations, and that's what drives it. And so it's just those little things, but how do you deal with this thought that some people might say, are you manipulating people?
Yeah. Well, there's the way I look at it is you're going to communicate. You're going to put out content. You're going to talk to people. You have the choice of doing it effectively or not effectively. And if you do it not effectively, what benefit does that have? So you have a great product that no one is in. You're not helping people. You're not changing their lives. Also, most people don't realize it is impossible, like scientifically, from psychologists, it is impossible to get someone to do something they don't want to do just by talking on, unless I'm with someone for like months at a time doing whatever, people do, it's impossible to get someone to do something they don't want to do just using your words, which is why even for me, whenever I do a campaign or something like that, a good conversion rate is 5%, which means 95% of people won't buy, right? Yeah. So there is no way to get people to do things they don't want to do. What this is about is getting your communication in alignment with where people are at, because they have a problem. Yeah. And they have these barriers that they need to go through again, it all comes down to trust. And so if you want to be the type of person that's just going to lie in your marketing and do whatever, it doesn't matter if you're doing that effectively or not, you're still going to lie, right? Yeah. That's just who you are. So when we start to take good people, like everyone listening and you, and show them proper ways to communicate, we get more people into good services, good products, good everything. And again, it just comes down to, you're going to be doing it anyway. So why wouldn't you want to learn how to communicate in a way that gets people to automatically trust you because you're a trustworthy worthy person. Does that all that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. And I'm gonna maybe point out the obvious here. We're talking about money. We're talking about business. We're talking about sales. We're talking about those kinds of things. Maybe team conversations. But these same skills come into relationships, parenting. I mean,
yes. Well, let me give you an example here, Mel.
Yeah.
So the reason why I love what I do is because it changes communication, like you said, amongst everyone, your relationships, your spouse, your kids. So I always use the example of my son, Will, and he loves to play Legos. He's 11, still loves to play Legos. They're all over his room, right? But we all know as parents that like stepping on Legos is like stepping on razor blades. Like it really hurts. It doesn't feel good. And so we had an issue with Will cleaning up his Legos, and he just wouldn't want to do it and I get it, right? He's building and he doesn't finish in a day. So he wants to leave it all there. But it becomes a problem when it's like every day there's just Legos, right? So I would just go in there and I think most people, like parents, would just be like, clean it up. I'm your parent. Do it now. You have 5 minutes. Otherwise you're gonna be grounded, right? And that is communication from our perspective. That's what that is. But if I start to look at like what his perspective is, and I start to realize, okay, he's in the middle of building something. He doesn't want to be disrupted. He's being creative. He's having fun. It changes the way I'm going to communicate with him now. And so I could walk in there and be like, well, he's a kid. He likes playing games. So maybe I could say, hey, Will, I heard that Superman can clean his room, clean up Legos in 5 minutes or less. Do you think you can beat Superman? Well, now it's a game. Now the whole communication has shifted and changed, right? But here's the thing. If Will really didn't want to clean his Legos, that doesn't matter. He's not going to clean his Legos. He's like, I don't care. Superman can win, right? But if he's open to it, it changes the response, right? The other way I could communicate it to him would be something like, hey, bud, just so you know, when I walk in at night, sometimes I step on the Legos and it really hurts, but I'm fine. But your sisters, your younger sisters, if they come in, it's really going to hurt them. And I really don't want them to be hurt. And I know you don't too. Do you think we can just clean up the Legos or at least make a pathway so people aren't stepping on your Legos? Such a different way of communicating, but it started all from what is Will's experience? What is he going through? What's a way that I could talk that's going to like resonate with him, that's going to land with him? And then again, I could try it 5 different ways and then realize way number 3 worked the best, and I'll just do that moving forward. And that is still like part of our messaging process. Is like sometimes we don't even know what will work. It is a test and a guess and things like that. And so we always look at people's behavior and what's working and what's not to make decisions on what we should do with our sales presentations. Like there's a whole process to it. But the point I'm making is that it will change the way your relationships are. Like I don't have to yell at my kids to get them to do what they want anymore. Like I went through a divorce recently, and it was very smooth. Like it could have gone really bad, but because I knew how to communicate from my ex-wife's perspective and make her feel heard and validate what she was going through and all of these things, the process was very smooth. It was very quick. It was very smooth. There wasn't any fighting. There wasn't any yelling. And that's what I'm talking about, is like, it just creates more peace in your life because you're not struggling. Like, why isn't someone watching my content? Why isn't someone buying? Or why is my wife always yelling at me or nagging at me? Or why isn't she listening? Or why aren't my kids listening? The way in which you communicate can shift all of that.
Well, I think really when we start to look at this, I remember when Jeremy was my son going through school, I said, one of the greatest abilities that you can nurture, because in hindsight, I realized it, is the ability to communicate. Now, I mean, yes, I'm a financial guy, but I make my living communicating, whether it's on stage, whether it's in video, whether it's on a podcast, whether it's like this, whether it's in writing. I can have a tremendous amount of technical knowledge, but without the ability to communicate effectively and efficiently, it's not getting off the ground. It's not getting out of the barn. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's the greatest skill we need to nurture. And I would tell you that when we look at our society and our world today, the problems are problems of communication. You can call it politics, you can call it what it is. It's communication. We don't know how to communicate. We don't know how to feel what the other person's feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what it comes down to is really understanding where the other person is at, and then being able to communicate to get them to see or to understand or feel heard or validated all of that stuff is really, really important. Yeah.
So this is a training that's going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the 17th, the 19th, if I'm doing the math right, and the 21st.
Yeah, you got it.
I did it.
You must be good with numbers or something.
I'm telling you. And so I'll put this back up on the screen. Here's the thing. Like I said, this is free, and I'm telling everyone, go there, go through the 3 days, because if you get one better skill to communicate with a team member, with a client, with a potential customer, with your child, with your significant other, man, it's all worth it. And and this is a journey. It's like the financial journey. I think that the financial freedom journey is a lifetime journey. This is a lifetime journey of learning to communicate. The beautiful thing, and you said this at the beginning, and I don't want it to get lost, is that the skills you gain, you take with you for the rest of your life. Yeah. They get to serve you in all aspects, in all seasons and reasons in life. And this is huge. And so you're going to go through, can you kind of just talk, maybe we touched on it, but maybe just each of the days, are they the same thing? They're different things. What do we, let's just talk about that so they know what they're getting into. Cause this is always huge. It's always fun too.
Yeah. So day number 1 is going to be focused on a lot of mistakes that you're making right now. So I always tell people, I can tell you what to do all day long, but if you keep making the same mistakes over and over and you're doing all the right things, it's still not going to be effective. It's like trying to drive a car and you have your foot on the brake and you're just hitting the gas, right? You're really not going to go anywhere. Your engine's going to make a lot of noise, but that's about it. So we're going to go through a lot of the mistakes that we need to stop doing first. And then what we're going to do is introduce the entire concept of the secret behind communication and messaging. Day number 2 is going to be, how do we specifically take your skills and knowledge, so your solution, so all the skills, the knowledge that you have, and how do we turn it into stuff that drives engagement and sales? We're going to focus really heavily more on the engagement side. So we've had clients and students who literally have put up like reels on Instagram, 1 million views in their first week, because there's certain ways and words you can use and ways to structure the content so that people are clicking on certain things, staying on the video longer, all that stuff, which sends all these triggers to the algorithm, and then boom, people blow up really quickly. And then day number 3 is going to focus specifically on content and sales. So how do we drive an entire demand creating content system? So what content do you put out there that gets people sold, does a lot of the selling for you? But then now as we transition to sales, what is it that we need to do, like on webinars, workshops, sales presentations, to actually get people to be like, damn, I need this. And just for context, when we do our launches, when we go into big launches and promotions, sometimes we'll do promotions that get over $1 million in sales, but 200,000 of that million comes in before we even open up cart, because we literally have people like, can I just buy? I don't want to wait. Just give me the link. And we have that many people coming up saying, I'm in, and they don't even know what the offer is. We haven't even presented the offer to them. They just know whatever it is that they want it, right? And that's because of how we communicate, because of how we teach. It's because of all of these things. And I'm just going to walk you guys through 3 days of that so you can start to do it yourself.
So good. So good. Listen, I mean, I know that you got a ton going on because it's starting next week. For everyone that's watching, listening, you got to jump in. Go to melabraham.com/messaging, grab a spot, go through it with me, go through it with Brandon, and you'll see. And on the other side of it, you'll be a better communicator. You'll have some tools and some things and some processes and frameworks to work from. We'll understand what the things are that might be holding us back, and we didn't even know it, the mistakes that we're making, and what to do instead. And I think that this is a hugely powerful training, because I think it's such a hugely important skill that so many of us take for granted or are lacking. We don't think about the skill of communication. And my friend, it's like having you as a dear friend, and the ability to just go to you and go, dude, man, can I say this any better? Is this, is so nice. But I know that some people don't have that at this point, but now they have access to you, and that starts on March 17th.
Starts on March 17th. We're gonna have a Facebook group as well for your Facebook group. So it'll be a community. So you guys will be able to ask me questions. We're gonna go through, like even be in between the trainings. I'll be in there answering questions. I'll be even doing live streams inside the Facebook group that are like little tidbits that go in combination with the teachings and stuff. So the goal is I really want you guys to understand what to say and how to say it. So you're driving engagement, but sales at the same time. And that's really the goal over the 3 days. So register, get in the Facebook group. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Cool. I just put it back up on the screen for y'all. melabraham.com/messaging. As we close out, my friend, any last thoughts or words for the audience before we get a chance to see you on Monday morning?
Yeah, I would say like, sometimes we look at communication and it can sometimes feel like a big overwhelming thing. But what you guys are going to realize over these 3 days, what I'm going to teach you is that there's just certain elements. There's just 16 different elements that you just need to know and master. And then you start to use those in different parts of your communication throughout your brand. And you'll see it. Like we're going to do exercise and stuff during 3 days. Like you will literally see it. You'll see results from other people there just by shifting 16 different elements. So we're going to go through a lot of that stuff too. It's a lot simpler than people think it is. So it's going to be fun.
So good. Buddy, and it's always fun having a conversation with you. Thank you for taking the time and spending the time with me, my audience, and all the folks out there. And I can't wait to be part of this coming next week.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. This is fun. It's going to be even more fun next week. So I'll see you guys all there.
All right. See y'all there. Cheers to y'all. See ya.